Hey, Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day. All Bills, all the time. And now Matt Bovee and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
Well, Bills fans, hopefully these last couple days have kind of calmed you down a little bit after the stinker that was the Monday Night Football game against the New York Jets. Thanks for listening to another episode of It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Matt Bovee, Channel 7, joined by Sal Capaccio, Bill sideline reporter, WGR. Sal, so now we are a few days removed from that game. We've had a chance to really hear from everybody. We heard from Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Sean McDermott, Ken Dorsey. It feels like they think they'll right the ship. But do you think they'll right the ship? Because that's the question everybody wants to know this week. What are we going to see from the offense?
Yeah, I think a couple things here, Matt. I agree with you. It feels like they believe that. Now, it's not a hubris of, we're just going to go out there and beat the Raiders. I think that it's a confidence of, hey, we beat ourselves. We're better than that. We know not to do that. We're not going to let it happen again. And Josh even said that. Josh said, in the grand scheme of things, and he took ownership that he said, in the grand scheme of things, it's one game. We're not going to let it become two. And I like that kind of talking. I do think it's a team that they should be able to beat. I mean, come on. It's the Raiders who are not nearly as talented as the Bills. They have talent. There's no doubt. But roster for roster, they're not the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are a 9-point favorite for a reason. So I do think they should be able to. And quite honestly, throughout Josh Allen's career, when he's had poor games and a lot of turnovers, he's been great the next game. Yeah. So I think that he's been very good at self-correcting, self-understanding, and making sure, they always talk about stacking wins. He makes sure that he doesn't stack bad performances.
Yeah, the only thing, I hear everything that you're saying. I agree with it for the most part, but I am certainly not overlooking anybody because I wonder, what would the line have been if it was Zach Wilson and the Jets going into the game? The Bills would probably be favored by 9 points, 10 points in New York, and they still played down to their competition, and they lost. I don't think they're going to do it back-to-back weeks. I think they are a much better team than what they displayed, but I do think it's a combination of both. I think they're better than they showed, and I think the Jets' defense is really legit, and for some reason just gives Josh a problem every single time. It needs to be a bounce-back game, but that being said, he cannot try and do too much and try and kind of make up for it. I don't need to see Josh going out there and throwing it 40 times in this game. Let the game dictate how you need to play, have a balanced attack offensively. I think you should be able to move the ball better and easier on the ground and in the air against this team. Obviously, the big concern with their defense is Max Crosby, especially if Max Crosby is going to go up against Spencer Brown a lot. That's a battle that they could win. So maybe they try and implement some of the really quick passes that they were doing early in the Jets game, try and get Josh into a little bit of a rhythm, and then start to take your shots, then start to be a little bit more calculated. But yeah, I think they'll bounce back, but I'm a little bit concerned that they're going to be so focused on playing a clean game that they're going to be in their head and they won't play free. That's the thing that I keep going back to. I don't want to see Josh thinking too much. He is so good because of how he reacts and just because he's such an incredible athlete. Yeah, you need to be coached. Yeah, you need to rein it in, but don't try and fit into a box that you shouldn't be trying to fit into.
Yeah, and for sure, you can't overlook anyone. We all remember Josh's rookie year. The Bills going to Minnesota, and they were 17-point underdogs, and they won, right? I mean,
exactly.
Crazy. You can't let that happen. I mean, I'm pretty confident in this team, this staff, Josh Allen, of course, but anything can happen. It's the National Football League, but I think they have the right people and temperament in their organization and in the room to understand the gravity of, what it would mean to go 0-2 against two conference teams, right? Especially one division team and then another team. So I agree with all of that. I want to go back to what people have been saying, right? Ken Dorsey, of course, says he trusts Josh Allen implicitly. I did ask Ken Dorsey, is there any thought to him going down and being on the sidelines? He calls plays from the booth, that he could kind of talk to Josh directly. And that's not implying, and I haven't said, I know you have trust in Joe Brady. It's not implying that you wouldn't have trust in Joe Brady. But you wonder if there needs to be some other sort of communication going on with Josh on the sidelines. I don't know if it's going to matter. I don't, quite frankly, probably wouldn't, to be quite honest with you. But you wonder if, and by the way, his answer to that was their process has been good for a year. They don't want to screw up the process. And I agree with that. I just wonder if there's got to be somewhere along the line some sort of communication during a game to Josh, or because you let Josh play and you just have to then trust that he's going to make those corrections.
Has their process been good? Like, and if it has been good, does it matter? Because has the play on the field been consistently good? I would say that it's been okay. And I think you should be looking for anything that maybe gives your team a spark, or maybe anything that kind of gets you out of a rut. Maybe they try it and they hate it, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea. I also don't necessarily think it would make a huge difference, but I just keep coming back to, like, the process has been good. I don't think this offense has been good really since what? The Packers game last year. Like, they've been statistically good, but they never looked like a dominant unit that could just go down the field and move the ball. So I think there is room for improvement. This is, such a big picture conversation. Josh Allen is the reason why they lost that game on Monday Night Football, but Ken Dorsey did not do him any favors. I think it's Ken Dorsey's job to get the most out of your best players. Your best player is Josh Allen. We know it can be done because we saw it done with Brian Daboll for years here. And that's not a fair bar. Like, Brian Daboll is a head coach in the NFL now because he is one of the elite offensive minds in the game. But I feel like there's still a gap between what he has looked like with Dorsey and what he was with Daboll. I think he just needs to get closer to that middle. And I think that's what the realistic expectation is. And it still just has never felt like this offense, even going back in the Jets game. They get the ball down 16-13. You know that they have to score, and you know that they've got 4 downs. At that point, I feel pretty confident that they're going to go down the field and probably tie the game. I was like, at least they're going to get to field goal range. I'm confident in that. But then the minute they took that false start penalty in overtime, Spencer Brown, and it was 2nd and 15, I'm like, they're going to have to punt, and they're going to have great field position. I would have never thought, obviously, the Jets returned it, but I just do not have nearly as much confidence in the Bills offense as I did, I don't know, a year and a half ago, or even at the beginning of last year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong at all about the Daboll point. That's been brought up a lot by people, but I think you're also right that, like, the drop off, it's anybody. Like, Brian Daboll to anybody's going to be a drop off. So, the question is, like, where is Ken Dorsey with that, with Josh Allen, and what level can he get him to? Because I think it's kind of unfair to talk about Ken Dorsey like that because the bar is so high. There's an old saying in sports, you never want to be the man who follows the man.
Yeah.
You want to be the man who follows the man who followed the man, right?
Yeah.
So there's such a high bar. I agree with you there. I wonder though, Matt, what doesn't make sense to me is they were humming in the first half of last season with Ken Dorsey as a first-year offensive coordinator. Yeah. It was right after losing Brian Daboll. I mean, I don't know what changed other than a Josh Allen injury, of course, that didn't help things. But I mean, you look, Josh only threw in the last 13 games, counting playoffs. Josh only thrown for 300 yards 3 times. Like, obviously, he's just not been the exact same quarterback. And again, I understand UCL injury. But it's not like they've been devoid ever since Brian Daboll left. They were really, really high-powered and good and doing everything right those first, 6-7 weeks after Brian Daboll left last year when Ken Dorsey. That's what's not making sense to me when I think perfectly logical you bring up the Brian Daboll point. I don't doubt that at all. I just have a hard time washing that with the fact of how good they were immediately after he left for 6-7 games.
Well, they weren't that good, though. They were really good.
I think they were in the first part of the year last year.
Well, they were for 2 games. And then they lost to Miami. They stunk in that game. And then they rallied against the Ravens in that weird sloppy rain game where I think they put up 20-something points or whatever it was. Then they kind of hit their stride a little bit, but then they cooled off. And it was like they hit their stride. It's all relative, right? Because the Chiefs game, they scored, I think, 24 points in that game, but it was a pretty good offensive game. There was a few little mishaps here and there. There was the fumble to McKenzie on the pitch thing. So offensively, I think they were better than they were now. I think that should be what they are capable of doing. And I think they will be. I really do think that Josh is going to be okay. I tweeted this earlier in the week. I am more concerned about the play caller than I am about the player. And that's not necessarily just a reaction to week 1. It's just the trends that they're heading in the direction. I trust that they will get better, but I do not think Dorsey has the longest leash in the world here. Because if something doesn't get better, somebody will be to blame, and it's not going to be Josh Allen. It's just not
No,
internally.
of course not.
So it makes you wonder, what is the like, when do you start to panic? I said something on the news earlier this week. I said, the sky is certainly not falling, but it might not be a bad idea to have an umbrella ready, because if things do not get better quick, like, they have to beat the Raiders and they have to beat the Commanders. It is week 2 and week 3.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not afraid to throw around, like, these are must-win games, which is ridiculous for a team that's got the aspirations that they have. But with the schedule at the end of the season, you cannot slip up on back-to-back weeks and expect that you can make up ground later. Because if you're going to make up ground later, then you're talking about beating the Chiefs, the Cowboys, your division opponents again, like the Chargers. Like, these are tough teams. These are tougher teams than the Jets without Aaron Rodgers, the Raiders, and the Commanders.
The Bills did do something they said they were going to do, and I think it was the right game plan and the right way to approach it, which is they were a very heavy 12 personnel team on Monday night. And for everybody who might not understand, 12 personnel means 2 numbers. 1 is number of running backs on the field. 2 is number of tight ends. So 1, 2, 12. So 2 tight ends in the field. That's what they wanted to go towards. They were the heaviest 12 personnel team. They ran that more than any team in the league. Unfortunately, though, it didn't translate into the numbers I thought it would for Dalton Kincaid doing that. I like that. I want him to stick with that. I know that it wasn't a great offensive output statistically, but I think that's the right approach. I think that's how they've constructed their roster, and I like it. And again, I'll go back to look at the film. There were guys open. I mean, it wasn't like Ken Dorsey didn't scheme guys open. He called plays where people were open, and Josh Allen didn't hit him, didn't find him, bailed out of the pocket too soon, whatever it is. I would like to see them continue with that 12 personnel. I do think that is the way for them to go.
I don't disagree with you, but to your point of there being guys open, there were, but the plays that everybody's going to think about they're going to think about the Gabe Davis interception, the third interception, where Diggs was wide open in the middle of the field. And then on the first interception, you're going to say, well, like, Josh could have just ran it, but he tried to hit Hardy over the top, probably didn't see the safety. I just want to see more specific plays for down and distance that I see around the league. Like, if it's 3rd and 1, I don't know. You could just throw a screen to Deontay Hardy and follow your block, and you're going to get a yard. Or if Damian Harris can't get a yard, then he probably should not be on the team. So I just don't know. So the Gabe Davis interception happens on 3rd and 2. Maybe they told Josh, like, your read here is Diggs. And then he panicked and he tried to hit Davis over the top. Don't even give him the option. You got to protect him from himself at that point. There should be 3 guys who are running 3-4 yard routes and just getting, you know what I mean? Like, those are.
Yeah, I want to tie this into something Dorsey said. I like it because, first of all, I think on that particular play, I think what he did do was, and I don't know if they told him what his read is necessarily, but I do think he saw it was man-to-man coverage. He put Diggs in motion. Guy goes with Diggs, so he knows it's man-to-man. He picks out the matchup he likes, which is Davis. Shouldn't have been. He predetermined where he was going to go. Shouldn't have been. What I didn't like about that play was exactly what you just said, which is, to me, that's a great opportunity for a QB run. Like, it's 3rd and 2. Just get on the edge, let Josh get it and get out of bounds, get down. I mean, I know we don't love seeing Josh running. That would be it. Because honestly, even if he gets a yard and a half, you might go for it on 4th down, on 4th and a half. But to me, that was a great opportunity for a QB designed run. So on Thursday, Ken Dorsey says to the media, he said, we limited the designed runs for Josh. Okay, look, we've talked about for months, you don't want Josh running all the time and taking a pounding. But here's the coordinator saying we limited his designed runs. And I'm thinking back, well, I think maybe there might have been a few times where maybe you could have called those. And I want to know where that's going to go.
And this is probably a ridiculous take. Okay. I'm sorry if you're listening to this and you're like, this guy knows nothing. To that point, I have thought this for a little while. I think maybe you've coached football, so tell me if I'm wrong here. I think maybe he's coached a little bit too much, and I think he's in his head, and that's one of the reasons why there's forced. I think he's scared to just go out there and be an athlete and make a play and run, and that's why on the first interception, he isn't trying to run for the first down, and he's trying to hit him over the top. And that's why on the 3rd interception, he's not just running and picking up the first down, and he's trying to throw the ball. Like, I think he is legitimately, everybody keeps telling him, you need to be smarter, you need to be smarter, you need to avoid hits. And now he is in his head about doing that and not just reacting to the play.
Well,
to a certain
I'm not going to
extent.
say that. I'm not going to say I think you're crazy. I don't agree with you, but I think there's room for me to agree with you in this sense. If that were true, man, I don't know why he's trying to run over people on in between two guys and
That's
jumping over
that's
guys.
that's a very fair counter. That's a
Right? I
very
mean, like
fair counter.
he wouldn't be scared. He's not. He didn't avoid. He also had one where he ran up the middle, and there's been a lot of talk about, was it a design run? Was it a pocket breaking down? But he took off, right? I mean, like, so
Yeah.
I don't think that. I do think, however, there's room for you to be right here in this sense, which is there may be times where he's running and going, oh yeah, I've been told, don't do this. Just go, just throw it. Like, don't run here. And maybe that's messing him up. I don't know, right? Like, hey, sometimes he says, I don't care. And sometimes he goes, oh yeah, I got to remember not to do that. And that can absolutely mess anybody up where you're kind of caught in between what you're trying to do. And then there was one other point about that. I completely pretty much forgot what I was going to say, but that's okay. It was about the offense and how Josh is doing all of this. But I don't think they're coaching him too much. No, in fact, maybe he has to be coached a little harder and more on not, throwing the interceptions and taking those chances. But I do think that the messaging could be messing with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair point, and I think nothing really feels like it's super cohesive right now.
Right.
It is one game, so I do not think that this is the end of the world. I do think that they're going to bounce back. I think they need to bounce back, and I think if they go out there on Sunday and have a really strong offensive performance, it's funny because the defense could almost look terrible, but if the offense puts up 35, 40 points, most Bills fans are probably going to be happy and go, okay, offense is back. That's what we needed. You know what I mean? Like, it's probably so much better for your football team to win a game 24-10 than it is to win it 35-34. But I think Bills fans, that's what they want to see. They want to see the offense go out there and put up points. And I think they have an opportunity to at least do that. I mean, the thing that I keep coming to, the first week of the NFL season is always weird. It just always is.
Yep,
and offenses usually are a little bit behind defense. And it wasn't just that the offense was behind the defense. It was behind a defense that is talking about themselves in the same breath as the 85 Bears. I certainly don't think they're that, but they are very, very good. And I think it was just kind of like the perfect storm for things that could go wrong. And now you kind of slowly got to dig yourself out of that hole. And I do think they will.
The Raiders are up next, the home opener. And that is going to be Sunday at 1 o'clock in Orchard Park. I sat down with Vinny Bonsignor. He is the Raiders beat reporter for the Review Journal. He's also host of the Morning Tailgate on Raider Nation Radio. And Vinny is going to tell us all about what the Raiders present, including possible injury updates to Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, and Jimmy Garoppolo, and what to expect when they come to town to face the Buffalo Bills. All right, my man, Vinny Bonsignor joining us here on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. It's good to catch up. It's always hard for us. You're not only Western time zone, I'm Eastern time zone where you're Pacific, but we basically have radio shows at the exact same time. So it's always hard for us to get together and talk.
Exactly. Those 3 hours are different. What's interesting about that? Spent some time with the Raiders practicing against the Rams, and it turns out that Josh McDaniels and Sean McVay have become really good friends. And what's helped expedite that is that they're now on the same time zone, the Pacific time zone. So their times line up. The Rams actually practice in the afternoon, the Raiders more in the morning. So it all kind of works out. Whereas when he was in New England, Josh McDaniels and Sean McVay was, obviously in Los Angeles, they could never link up because of the time change too. So I think we understand where they're coming from.
Vinny, normally I'd have my co-host Matt Beauvais with me here, but just you and I talking. Matt couldn't participate in this particular interview, but it's always good to have you. And I have to ask, you are in Vegas, right? Because the Raiders are not. The Raiders are in West Virginia. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, when the schedule came out, they decided to go ahead and spend the week in West Virginia to kind of get acclimated to the time zone. There's, I guess, some humidity going on still on the East Coast, a little bit different weather. So they just wanted to get a little bit of a leg up on it. They do that, on pretty much on a yearly basis if there's back-to-back games or East Coast trips that they want to kind of get a leg up on. Later on in the year when they play the Miami Dolphins, they're going to go to Orlando to practice there for a week. Last year when they played Jacksonville in between playing the Saints, they went out to the IMG Academy, in Sarasota to practice there. So not unusual for them to spend a week away from town to try to get acclimated to the surroundings that they're going to be playing in.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Vinny Bonsignor joining us. He is the Raiders beat reporter for the Review Journal. He's also the host of the Morning Tailgate on Raider Nation Radio. All right, let's just take a look back to last week first. The Bills, obviously, on national television,
Yeesh.
a game that they really kind of gave away with Josh Allen's turnovers. But the opposite was true for the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, they go to Denver, they get a victory, an upset win over the Denver Broncos. How did it happen?
Yeah, they did some very un-Raider like things. Let's put it that way. Especially of recent years, they played their best football when the best football was required, and it all kind of followed their worst moment. Their two worst moments, really. Jimmy G throws an end zone interception. Can't have that. He called it stupid, dumb, idiotic after the game, so he definitely owned it. But they throw the interception in the end zone, which a TD gives them the lead. A field goal, I think, would have tied it at that point. So kind of a devastating way to start the fourth quarter. Then their defense, which has been playing pretty good, forces a 3-and-out only on fourth down on a punt. They run into the punter. They give the Broncos a new set of downs. But from that moment on, they played their best football. They don't give up a touchdown in this situation. In years past, including last year, they give up the touchdown right there. So rather than go down by 10, it's a 6-point game. The Raiders offense then scores a touchdown to go up 17-16. They give the ball back at 6 minutes, with about 6 minutes left in the game. Fair for Raider Nation to start worrying at that point because they've given up plenty of leads by turning the lead right back over in that situation. Instead, they force a 3-and-out, make some great defensive plays to do that. The Broncos punt the ball, and the Raiders get it with 5 minutes and 8 seconds left. Fair to wonder once again, how are the Raiders going to blow this? They've always kind of gone 3-and-out right there, give the other team another chance. The other team goes and scores the winning touchdown or winning field goal, and that's all she wrote. Well, this time, they did something that when we looked at the statistics of this, you have to go all the way back to 2000 when they started kind of tracking this and talking about Sport Radar. I don't know how much further it goes beyond that because it only stops at 2000. But the Raiders have never, since that data has started being accumulated in 2000, the Raiders have never killed off a clock to preserve the lead of 5 minutes or more. So it's the first time they've really ever done that in modern history. So when we talk about very un-Raider-like things, that certainly was the case. And to not give the Broncos another chance at the ball turned out to be obviously the game winner. And you got to give a lot of credit to Jimmy Garoppolo. He played winning football. The defense played winning football. So I don't know if it's sustainable. We'll see in Buffalo, but not a bad start for the Raiders to start this season.
No, nice efficient day for Jimmy G. 20 of 26, only 200 yards though. Is that the way they need him to play it? Is that kind of going to be the formula for success for them this year?
I think and I've talked to Jimmy about this. He's like, hey, whatever it takes. He's won football games all sorts of different ways, whether it's handing the ball off a bunch of times or throwing it a bunch of times. He's done it, lots of different ways. So I would imagine that from week to week, that's probably going to change. It was enough for them to win this game. It might not be enough, though, against the Buffalo Bills, who have a much more prolific offense than the Denver Broncos. So for the Raiders, I think to win this game on Sunday, they're going to have to be a little bit more productive offensively, and probably some of that's going to have to come through the air, although they definitely need more than what Josh Jacobs gave them in week one as well.
Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, we know how powerful they are. They have a great running game, rushing leader. And by the way, obviously a big deal for them to even have Josh Jacobs back after what happened. But Jacoby Myers did not practice again on Thursday. That was a vicious hit he took against the Denver Broncos. He's still in the league's concussion protocol. A, do you expect him to play the way this is trending, at least? I don't expect you to be, the medical professional here. And B, how big of a loss would it be if he didn't?
Yeah, I think, kind of tracing back to, how many times have we had to cover concussion protocols? I don't think you even are allowed to practice at some point, and there's so many different hurdles to clear to get to be approved to play on Sunday that I'm not sure it even is that's able to happen before a Thursday. So I don't know if this is, a bad trend that he hasn't practiced yet or just sort of part of the process. And, we don't know if he's cleared a bunch of things to get to a certain point, maybe tomorrow, when they get back on the field, is if he's able to do a little bit of something on Friday. That might be the bigger tell one way or another. If he's not out there, that's probably not a good sign whatsoever. If he is out there, then it sounds like he'd be making progress, or it seems like he would be making progress.
How big of a loss would it be if he didn't play?
Yeah, well, you saw last week what he was able to do. 2 touchdowns was kind of the focal point of the passing game, along with Devontae, obviously. So, yeah, it would be a big loss. It would put an onus, I think, on Hunter Renfrow, who didn't have any targets on Sunday. He would have to be more featured in the offense. I think Michael Mayer, the rookie tight end, along with Austin Hooper, the veteran tight end. So, and of course, Josh Jacobs. I think if Jacoby can't go, there's going to have to be sort of a by committee type of a thing. But don't ever forget, they do have number 17 over there, and he's been known to carry the day. So
Yes.
that might be a big day. If you're looking at fantasy football, maybe it's time to pick up Devontae Adams over there on the other side.
Last thing on the offense, the offensive line had really good PFF grades, as far as pass protecting. Where are they? Is that the truth of who they are? Was it more of Jimmy just getting rid of the ball? Was it not a good pass rush for Denver? How good is this offensive line?
Probably a little bit of both. This was a unit that was trending up at the end of the season. I think they started as the second worst offensive line according to Pro Football Focus to start last season. They finished as the 10th best offensive line. So that's a pretty big jump for them. And it was indicative of how they play and kind of how played and how they came together. And I think Sunday was a continuation of that. They brought back every starter except for a guy that you guys probably know pretty well. Greg Van Rooten took over right guard for Alex Barr, so he's now the starter there. That's the only difference from last year to this year. And then I think Jimmy G did a great job of identifying, where the blitzes and the pressure was coming from, communicating it to the offensive line. It's the quarterback's role in this offense to do that. You mentioned him getting rid of the ball pretty quickly. That's another factor. He also did a good job with his feet to elude the pressure when it was there, and actually ran the ball a couple of times. I told him afterwards, thank you for showing the world that some of us Italians can actually run a little bit. He got a pretty big laugh out of that. He said, look, it's not normally what we do, but sometimes we got to do it. So Jimmy showed that he can run a little bit, got that key first down at the end of the game. So it was kind of a combination of both. But I do, from the starting point, you have to give Jimmy G a lot of credit for managing things at the line of scrimmage the way he did.
Talking with Vinny Bonsignor here on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. All right, the other side of the ball. I'll just ask, what in the world is going on with Chandler Jones? My Syracuse guy, by the way. I went to Syracuse. He went to Syracuse, but what is going on? We're interested in him too locally because of the connection in Central New York and his family, but also because of the story. It just seems wild.
It does. And, for us, it kind of came out of the blue. I would imagine that there was something that was probably brewing there behind the scenes. Yeah. He had missed a good chunk of training camp. He just wasn't out there. And we just kind of assumed that it was injury related, and maybe it was. But, you know how it is in training camp. They're not obligated to tell us exactly what's going on. So all of a sudden, the Monday before the season opener, all of a sudden, he's firing off a series of weird, cryptic Instagram posts, and that followed the next day as well. And the next thing you know, he's nowhere to be found, at least he's here locally, as far as I know, but he's not been around the Raiders, and he just has been away. And I don't expect that that's going to change anytime soon. I don't know exactly how they're going to handle this. It seems like it's leaning toward maybe a breakup, but I think they're trying to figure out exactly how to go about doing that. But it's created a big hole for the Raiders. They were counting on Chandler Jones to have a better season than he had last year in his first season with the Raiders, opposite Max Crosby, kind of as the mentor to the young kid, Tyree Wilson. Well, all of that went out the door first week of the season. All of a sudden, Tyree now has to play a bigger role. Malcolm Kuntz, University of Buffalo, has to play a bigger role. So there's been a domino effect, and I feel like the Raiders are going to be feeling that for a little while, unless something miraculous comes about and there's a reconciliation or a positive outcome. And here's the tricky thing: we don't even know exactly what's going on. And
right, what's interesting to me? Like, we had all this stuff with Stefon Diggs over the summer, and every time I did a show with somebody, what's going on with Stefon Diggs? And it kind of went just away, right? Like, Stefon showed up, everything's good, it's all rainbows, and nobody knew anything about Chandler Jones, and suddenly we're here. It's kind of a totally opposite situation. Does anybody know how we got here?
No, not at all. And Josh McDaniels has classified it and termed it as a personal matter. And sometimes as reporters, we have to respect that.
Yep.
It makes it sound like it's obviously something that goes beyond just football, and this is human. We all know, and I don't want to cast anything one way or another, but we all know that with mental health and with, all of that, you have to be aware of all of it. And so as reporters, I think we've done a pretty decent job of just respecting where this is right now. I'm sure answers are going to come down the road, but right now might not be the time for that.
All right, so let's talk about the other side of it, which is Max Crosby. I mean, I spoke with Mitch Morse and a couple other offensive linemen. They have so much respect for him. Really, I mean, Mitch Morse said, you watch play 1 and play 60, maybe, whatever it is, and you can never tell the difference. This guy just goes hard. He balls all the time. How important is he to that defense?
And what's crazy is he does that in practice, Sal, and I'm not kidding around. It's he put Michael Mayer the first day in pads to put this in perspective. The coaching staff said, Max, you're on the rookie today. And I don't know if it was Max Crosby feeling, or holding it up for every, 2-star recruit or non-star recruit that had to go the mid-major way, the way he did, that was going to stick it to the 5-star recruit, Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. But he just had his way with Michael, and it was done on purpose. So Michael Mayer could truly understand what this was all about, and everybody handled it with respect, and there was really appreciation too. But it's one thing to say, hey, go get the rookie, veteran defensive end, and maybe for a player to be able to teach him a couple lessons. But Sal, this was play in and play out for an entire practice, and to be able to pull that off as Max Crosby did, you have to have some superpowers to do that. So yes. That's how he practices. That's how he plays. And I still feel like there's better football ahead for him.
It's amazing. All right. They have the 2 Marcuses in the secondary. Josh, obviously very familiar with Marcus Epps, his former Wyoming teammate. When I asked him about it, he interrupted me and said, go Pokes. So he knows who he is. They have a relationship. Marcus Peters, obviously we know what he's done in this league. What is the rest of the secondary, though? I know that they can be a little young and maybe susceptible at times.
Yeah, Jacorian Bennett, fabulous game 1 for a rookie, couple penalties, but a lot of that was just kind of sort of a rookie type stuff, but otherwise really good games. Nate Hobbs had a spectacular game playing now the slot cornerback position. You mentioned Marcus Peters. Marcus Epps, the veteran safety, has done a really good job. So they've done a pretty good job of changing over that secondary, adding some veterans. And then you go to the linebackers, Robert Spillane, Divine Diablo. They had really good games on Sunday. Again, I keep saying un-Raider-like, but even that defensive effort at all levels was very un-Raider-like.
Well, I know that Sean McDermott has faced Josh McDaniels and vice versa, several times. So it's not like they're unfamiliar with each other. And these 2 teams, going back to 1960, I was doing some research. If you count the playoffs, 42 meetings, 21-21. It's crazy. This is actually like the rubber match. I mean, Bills and Raiders have an outstanding history going way, way back.
Yeah, and they played a lot early. They haven't played a lot as of late. It's very just periodic. But it is fun when these 2 organizations get together because they're the AFL Blue Bloods, and there was all those stories about how the Bills actually helped the Raiders early on. So there's a lot of respect there, and there's a lot of greatness as well. And it's always fun when these 2 teams and these 2 organizations get it together.
Vinny, thank you so much. We really always appreciate you. And are you going to be up here in Buffalo this weekend?
I'm actually not going to be there. I traded that one trip to one of my coworkers because he's from Buffalo, and he was so I said, okay, go for it. Kind of kicking myself, but it is what it is. It's all good.
No, you're a good man for doing that. Next time you come up here, either way, though, now you get double wings on me because you're such a good guy and you allowed that to happen. Vinny Bonsignor, he is the beat reporter for the Las Vegas Raiders for the Review Journal. He's also the host of the Morning Tailgate on Raider Nation Radio. My man, either way, we're going to catch up somewhere down the route, down the line, whether it's combine, owners meeting. Thanks for doing this today. I always appreciate it.
Thank you, Sal. I really appreciate it, brother.
All right. Well, we thank Vinny Bonsignor there. So, Matt, it looks like maybe no Jacoby Myers for the Raiders. I mean, he's going through this. Did you see the hit he took?
Yeah, I did. After the fact. I saw it after the fact because there was a couple other players who I guess people thought should have probably been taken out of games because of concussions. And then you have the hit with him too. Yeah, it was a bad one.
And I do wonder, you hope he's okay, but he is progressing through the protocol in some capacity, but we'll see on Friday if he practices. By the time people hear this, we might know. If he's not practicing on Friday, I would think he's not going to play. It looks like Adams is going to play. And Jimmy
he had a really nice game the last game. Jacoby Myers led their team. He had 10 targets, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns.
I'm a big Jacoby Myers guy. I think Jacoby Myers to me was the number 1 receiver available in free agency, and he got paid like it. I think I think the Patriots made a mistake. They decided to let him
Yeah.
go and then give Juju Smith-Schuster the same money.
Yeah, especially it's weird because he was kind of like a homegrown guy there.
Mhm.
So it was weird that they let somebody that they developed walk and then basically use the same money to go get somebody else who, I don't know, I don't know, is Juju even marginally better than Jacoby Myers?
I think, yeah. I mean, we could look at stats. I would rather have Jacoby Myers on my team.
Juju Smith-Schuster has name recognition, right?
Right.
And, he won a Super Bowl last year, so certainly that's not a bad thing. But, yeah, I don't know. We talked about Jacoby Myers a little bit this summer because whenever we were talking about Gabe Davis, we were basically saying Gabe Davis would have gotten paid more than Jacoby Myers did get paid, and way too early in the season. I don't know if that's necessarily true, though, right? Like, I don't know how big of a gap there is there.
Yeah, I don't really know, but I think it is a good barometer for, what maybe Gabe could have commanded on the open market. A couple other notes from Vinny. Well, the Raiders they're in West Virginia practicing. They are very much into sports science and analytics, and what that told them was to go. And they didn't have they don't have back-to-back East Coast games. It's not like they played week 1 and 2 or even 2 and 3. They're back home next week. They were in Denver last week. So they decided to travel to West Virginia on Tuesday, practice all week, and then they're going to come to Buffalo on Saturday. Interesting strategy.
That makes no sense to me.
None
whatsoever. And obviously people who are way smarter than both of us are probably telling them that is something that they should do. But what is the flight from Vegas to Buffalo? 4.5 hours?
Right.
So you are saving yourself 3 hours of a flight, but you're also putting your team in a hotel for 4 days.
Saturday. So 5 total. 5 nights.
That's strange.
4 in West Virginia, 1 in Buffalo for hotel. That's right.
That's what I mean. Like, that's strange to me. Like, you're taking, you're getting rid of a routine for 3 extra hours of a flight.
Well, that team that is coming to Buffalo has Jimmy Garoppolo, who was efficient last week, 20 of 26, 200 yards. But he is also limited, I think, and you're going to get that. That's the kind of way he has to run the offense. 20 of 26, 200 yards. This isn't facing Aaron Rodgers again. This isn't facing Patrick Mahomes, but he's got the best running back in the league as far as yards last year. Josh Jacobs behind him led the league, and then Devontae Adams. You talk about Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow. This is an offense with a lot of weapons on it, Matt. I mean, after what you saw from the Bills' defense, how equipped are they? Do you think to handle all of them?
I actually think they're equipped fairly well because I don't think that Josh Jacobs scares you a bit just because he is a good running back. He didn't have a great game. He only averaged 2.5 yards a carry against the Broncos. And admittedly, I don't know a ton about the Broncos defensive line. So that's not obviously a great output, but the Bills are susceptible to giving up a big play on the ground. We saw that multiple times in the last game they played. The reason I think it's a pretty nice matchup for the Bills is I thought their defensive line was cooking, especially in the pass rush. Last game with Leonard Floyd and Greg Rousseau, even Ed Oliver a little bit. And Jimmy Garoppolo is not the most mobile guy. Like, even when Rodgers was in the game for those 4 plays, they were getting after him. And Zach Wilson is significantly more mobile than Aaron Rodgers is. So that's kind of one of those things where it's like you game planned for Aaron Rodgers, then Zach Wilson comes in. You should be able to adapt and adjust better than maybe they did at times, but they were still getting after Zach Wilson as well. So I think this might be a matchup where they can generate some pressure, force him into making some bad throws, and you just got to try and capitalize. He'll still be efficient. He's still going to probably throw some short passes that you're going to, they're going to break off for 15, 20 yards, and you're going to be frustrated. It's like, why did that happen? But you'll also probably be able to pin him back on 3rd and long a few times, and that's when you should be able to get him off the field or force a turnover.
Sean McDermott the other day mentioned Christian Benford's play to run down Breece Hall and how he said that's the kind of play that should be on SportsCenter. Should be on highlights. You teach kids not only how to play the game, but how to live your life. Just the secondary in general, after last week, obviously, not facing Aaron Rodgers is different than facing Aaron Rodgers is going to be different than facing Zach Wilson. But just the secondary in general, obviously with these weapons, let's say Myers does play, Devontae Adams, and Hunter Renfrow. They're going to pose some problems out there, but I like the way the corners played. And I know Tre'Davious White got beat on a play, but that was a heck of a catch. And it was a kind of a fortunate bounce. He batted it to himself, I guess. So give him credit. Garrett Wilson, he's great. But, I think otherwise I have no problem with the way the secondary played, other than maybe, to be honest with you, Taylor Rapp in the run game.
Yeah. It's I joked before about Rex Ryan saying, like, if you take out the big play, the defense did great. And I know you can't do that, but
You're gonna do it.
legitimately, but I am going to do it. Because if you, besides the massive Breece Hall run, the Bills defense was solid. I mean,
real good.
you had players who probably need to be better. Taylor Rapp, I know a lot of people have said needed to be better. I didn't notice a ton of issues with Taylor Rapp, but it's not like I'm paying a ton of attention to their third safety. The Bernard stuff is interesting because it feels like the big run happened because Bernard lined them up in the wrong spot. And there were also a couple plays that you probably want him to be better on. I anticipate that he is still the guy this week. I think they're going to give him time to try and grow into that role. But I do think Christian Kirksey is going to kind of floating back there. And if this does not go well, the same thing I said about Ken Dorsey earlier. I don't think the Terrell Bernard leash is super long, and I don't think the leash is, being pulled because of Tyrell Dodson. I think it would be because of Kirksey. But as far as like those guys that stepped up, Christian Benford, awesome. Like really, I feel much better, even in a loss, much better about their secondary, their corners than I did before the game.
Yeah, I think it's well said. All right. Well, the Bills and Raiders, they get after it in Orchard Park, 1:00 on Sunday. A lot of other big games around the league. Let's just touch on mostly the AFC games that are going to matter here. The Bengals, they also did not look good. We talked about Joe Burrow. One of the stats that came out of the last, 48 hours or whatever since we've done a podcast is Burrow didn't do anything down the field. That calf is still bothering him, Matt. And obviously, I mean, he did miss all that time, and it's a pretty significant injury, but he can't drive the ball. And that said, I think they're in danger of going 0-2 here. I think they're much more in danger than the Bills playing the Raiders, but I think the Ravens can go to Cincinnati, and the Bengals could be 0-2 here.
Yeah, well, I'm not like super high on the Ravens either, but at the same time, Justin Jefferson, I think we're watching the game live here. I think
You're watching it. I got the stat sheet open, so I'm taking a look at it. Go ahead.
I think he might have just fumbled it out of the end zone for a touchback.
My gosh. Jeez.
Interesting. I don't know if you've got fantasy implications. It could be just, that he ran out at the one, but I guess we'll find out. Okay, going back to that. I don't think the Ravens are that great, but the Bengals looked like they really stunk. I watched a lot of that game in the hotel lobby the other day, and I just don't know what was up with them. It's hard to not give them the benefit of the doubt because we're sitting here giving the Bills the benefit of the doubt, and the Bengals have had a more explosive offense, at least recently, than the Bills have, with better and more consistent weapons. I think they'll figure it out, but that's a tough defense to try and figure it out against. And like you said, if you fall to 0-2 in that division, I know the division is not as good as maybe we thought it was a week ago because of maybe the Steelers, but you got to play the Browns again. You know what I mean? Like you've got to play the Steelers twice. You got to still play the Ravens again. Like that might be too deep of a hole in that division.
Yeah, it's a tough division for sure. Speaking of that division, Monday night, you got the Browns and Steelers, and the Browns looked really good against the Bengals. The Steelers looked horrible. I kind of feel a Steelers bounce back coming. Now, maybe it's because I picked the Steelers to be better than what they showed on Sunday, and I kind of want that to happen just for that purpose, for me to be right. But I mean, it's Mike Tomlin, and getting off the mat after a game like that, I think his team can do it. Prime time, Monday night at home against the Cleveland Browns. I think, Cleveland feeling themselves, feeling good. I understand that. I think that the Steelers should have a bounce back game there. That's a big game for both these teams too.
Yeah, I'm just not sold yet on Deshaun Watson and the Browns offense. I know that he was fine the other day, but he did not by any stretch knock my socks off. So that makes me wonder against a better defense, how will he look? And I don't know. I feel like the Steelers game is one of those games where they fell behind so soon that they were trying to play catch up and they just couldn't. And if it was a closer game, it would have looked like, a much tougher battle all the way through, but the deficit was just too big. I don't think the Steelers are great, but I think that they will come to play. And I don't even know what the line is, but I think I would probably take the Steelers in that game.
I'm just looking. I think he did fumble, didn't he? Fumbled it through the end zone, Justin Jefferson. We're doing this in real time with everyone. I think he did. I'm reading Twitter, and it looked like everyone is saying that, but I don't know if that's been declared.
You know what another unbelievable game this weekend could potentially be, and obviously massive implications. I'm going to make you guess.
Jags.
Yeah, Chiefs at Jags.
Yeah, that was my next on the list. I'm trying to talk to you about the Justin Jefferson play first. I didn't know if you were watching it. I'm not watching it.
Well, okay. What if the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Bengals all lose week 1. What is the likelihood that all 3 of those teams win week 2? It's not very good. Somebody's going to lose. Obviously, if you're a Bills fan, you're really hoping it's not the Bills, and they probably have the most favorable matchup. But the Chiefs are on the road against the Jags, a team that's, I think, up and coming. What if they fall to 0-2? Is there a chance they miss the play? I don't even want to say it. It's the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I don't think maybe. I mean, I guess there's always a chance, right? You don't know. But yeah, the Chiefs are a little bit in trouble if they start 0-2 also. Now, the difference is they'd have one NFC loss, one AFC loss, but it would still be big news. I think the bigger issue would be why they're 0-2. And that is because they don't seem to have a really good semblance of a wide receiver core, even with Travis Kelce coming back, and he's going to be maybe limited. We'll see what his status is and how he plays and performs. But I think there are bigger issues in Kansas City here.
Yeah, I think they right the ship. I think
probably right.
I think getting Travis Kelce back makes everybody else that much better. I don't think Tony will ever play a football game that bad again. I think that Sky Moore has a ceiling that has not even been close to being reached yet. And I trust Patrick Mahomes, probably maybe more than I should, but I still think that he's the best player in the NFL, and he's absolutely capable of, getting this team back to the level that they have shown they can play at. Of the 3 teams that were the top 3 seeds in the AFC last year, so Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, who is it the most, who needs to win the most? I think I would go Bengals, Bills, Chiefs.
I think you're right. I think that sounds right. If Aaron Rodgers was still in the Jets, I'd say maybe the Bills first, because the division is a little different now, right? But I probably. But man, they all need to get a win. I think it's either Bengals or Bills. I don't think it's the Chiefs.
Yeah, I agree.
Because their first loss. The difference is the Chiefs' first loss again was NFC team. So even technically record-wise, they would not. And by the way, Jags lost to the Chiefs 27-20 in the playoffs. Jags are home in this game, and that's a team. The Jags have a pretty easy division. They're looking to get, if they win this game against the Chiefs, they're 3 games, 2.5 up on them. When you're talking about seeding, that matters because they'd have a 2-0 against an 0-2, and they would have beaten them head to head. All right, 2 more games I just want to touch on with you. And one of them is just a question of, do the Jets have any chance with Zach Wilson and that defense to do anything at Dallas? Or is this no, this is it. Dallas is just going to boat race them, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that the Bills I don't want this to be a complete shot at the Jets. They won the game. They did enough. They made a big play to win the game, but I still think the Bills lost that game more than the Jets won the game. And I don't think that you have that happen to you 2 games in a row. I think that they'll go there and I don't think they'll get boat raced because their defense is too good to get boat raced, but I think they lose a double-digit game.
And then finally,
isn't it
1-0 Miami Dolphins.
Real quick. Isn't it weird? I saw this somewhere. I don't know who came up with it or who said it first. The team with the biggest spread in their favor this week lost last week. That's the Bills. The team who is the biggest underdog this week won last week. That is the Jets.
Week-to-week league. That is funny. You're right.
Yeah.
By the way, I'll wrap up with something else I want to get to, but Dolphins at Patriots is the last game I want to get to. Dolphins, Patriots. Look, I think the Patriots actually played a pretty good game against the Eagles. You and I were together watching most of that game in New York. Shout out Jack Dempsey's bar and time in Manhattan, down by MSG and Times Square and all that. Anyway,
right by MSG.
Yeah, there you go. We were watching that game, and the Eagles just came out and they were already up 16-0. It looked like it was over, and the Patriots came back and they played a good game. Mac Jones played well. He played well. The Dolphins, of course, they were kind of the story of week 1. Tua now is the favorite to win the MVP. I don't know if you know this. Dolphins are actually the favorite to win the AFC East. All of that is true. The Dolphins also gave up over 30 points to the Chargers. I mean, they won 36-34, so it wasn't all roses there. So I give the Patriots a chance here in this game at home.
I don't, just because even though they gave up 34 points to the Chargers, I do not see them giving up 34 points to the Patriots, right? What would that take? Would that take maybe Mac Jones' best game in a year and a half? and which playmakers, like you think about the Chargers, all the guys that team has. You have Austin Eckler, you had Mike Williams, you had Keenan Allen, you had Quentin Johnson, you have all these guys. Like the playmakers on New England are still just not good enough. Kendrick Bourne, nice player. Ramondre Stevenson, good running back. But that cannot be a team that ever gashes you for over 30 points, right? Like if they're if they're getting ready to play the Bills, what's the number you think the Bills need to get at to win the game? To me, it's probably like 24, right? If they score more than 23 points on you, your defense didn't do enough. So I do think that Miami, I think Miami is very legit, like very legit. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why this is
you don't
such
have
an
any concerns
game.
about their defense at all?
I think that they could score
The defense
legitimately.
was horrible against the Chargers.
I know, but I think they can score 35 points every week. And your defense
they might be able to, but you can't have a defense like that and just say we're just going to, there's going to be games you just don't score sometimes like that. The Bills had seasons like that. 2020, they were like that, you know, I mean, and I know they won a lot of games in 2021, but I just think that you got to be able to stop a team once in a while, and they just didn't do it. Maybe their defense is great from here on out, you know, Vic Fangio. But I would be a little concerned if I'm a Dolphins fan watching that.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, you'd be concerned. You want to have a great offense and a great defense, but realistically, it's more important to have a great offense. Look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs have never had a dominant defense, and they've won 2 Super Bowls in the last couple of years. Yep. That has nothing to do with their defense. It's because they could go out there and score 38 points. And Tua is certainly not Patrick Mahomes, but Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are the best 1-2 punch in the NFL. And it feels like Mike McDaniel is just so freaking smart when it comes to scheming his guys open. Mm-hmm. There were a couple plays, you know, you see the All-22 film and stuff the days after the game where there's nothing the Chargers could have done. Like these guys are just so much better than the defenders that it's like, what are you going to do? Sorry. What are you going to do against Tyreek Hill? You going to play man? No. Okay. Well, then they'll just find a spot in the zone. Like, it's crazy.
All right, last thing.
61-yard field goal. I got like a little sidetracked there because he just made it.
So what happened here? The Jake Elliott?
Yeah, 61-yarder.
That's great because I have him on one of my fantasy teams. Jake 61-yard field. It was set up because Justin Jefferson did fumble the ball out of the end zone. Okay, last thing we're going to wrap up with this. Is that the worst rule in football? It might be the worst rule in sports. You fumble it out of the end zone, it's a touchback? I mean, the defense did nothing. They didn't even recover it. This is a rule that I don't know what it should be, but it can't be that.
Huh. It's not the worst rule in sports. It's a dumb rule. It's not the worst rule in sports.
I don't know what the worst rule is in sports. This is a dumb rule.
You know what the worst rule in sports is?
Tell me.
This is maybe a little bit more niche. With flipping the puck over the glass and it being a delay of game penalty in your own end on the ice.
Disagree. I think it's actually a good rule, but anyway.
Oh, I think it's a terrible rule. And I think it's especially a terrible rule in like a high stakes setting or in like a playoff game. Could you imagine those refs do not call anything in a playoff game? You can assault somebody on the ice and it's like, yeah, it's playoff hockey, but then you flip the puck over the boards.
Don't care. Flip it over the boards on purpose. Too bad. Go sit down. Keep the game moving.
Oh, I think it's such a stupid rule. I think it's such
I want to talk about this rule. Justin Jefferson fumbling the ball out of bounds.
Yeah.
What can be done about it?
Maybe, I don't know. I was going to say you can't just take it. You take it back to where the fumble happened, but
yes, but I mean, or the 1 yard line. I don't know.
I get the
Here's what I think should happen. Actually, what I think should happen is you do put it at the 20, but the offense keeps it.
I was going to say maybe like it's a penalty. Maybe it's like a delay of game penalty or something.
Well,
and it's
how
like
about this, Matt? Here's why it's the dumb rule. In no other area of the field does the offense not keep that ball.
Yeah, I know.
If you are going forward at your 20 and fumble it at the 25 out of bounds, you keep the ball. Why should it be any different once it goes through the end zone?
Yeah, well, but also on the field, you're just like farther down the field. You're just basically talking about the sidelines. You're not also talking about going out the back of it. You know what I mean? Like that's a very.
But I don't know where it went on this one. I didn't see it.
It went side. It went side still.
It would be out of the back.
Yeah, it would be very rare instance for it to go out of the back. Like that does not happen very often, but it is, a much bigger area that it comes into play. I don't know. I think that you got to protect the ball more when you get closer to the end zone. I don't think that
you sound like a coach.
I don't
Just protect the ball and it won't happen, son.
It's not a good rule, but there needs to be some sort of punishment for it. You could not just have like what Justin Jefferson just did. You couldn't just give the ball back to the Vikings at the 1 yard line. There needs to be some sort of punishment.
Give it back to him at the 20.
I like that. I like that because even if you do that, say you do it on 3rd down and you're diving to try and get into the end zone and you fumble it, then okay, at least you're still getting some points. You're obviously not getting a touchdown, but you're getting some points, or conceivably if you make it. Yeah, it's a stupid rule, but there's a lot of stupid. This is a $1 billion sport that has the margin for error that is ridiculous. I mean, like in tennis, you can see exactly where the ball lands on the line. And this is based off of where guys think they see, guys and gals think they see the football going to, and they measure it with it's like the inexact science that is football.
Bills, Raiders, they've played 42 times, including playoffs, 42 times since 1960. Do you know the record?
42 times, 21 and 21.
That's exactly right. This is the rubber match, 21 and 21. Bills and Raiders since 1960. 21-19 Raiders regular season, 2-0 Bills postseason. On the next podcast, Matt and I will debate the puck over the glass rule in the NHL. How about that? All right. Mike Robier, thank you. I think you're so wrong, man. I like that rule. I didn't like it when it happened to the Sabres against the Hurricanes, of course.
You know what another stupid rule is? This isn't even really like I guess this isn't even like
our producer's like, are we gonna get out of here or what? Let's go. What?
Get rid of the shootout forever. It's stupid.
Okay. I'd be okay with that. I don't mind it, but
stupid.
Maybe we could just end games in ties again. I don't know.
No. Not that either.
I mean, you gotta come up with something. All right, we will 3-2-1 point system that should be implemented, right? We gotta do all that.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
This is not
Let's stop
show,
talking.
we
Let's
can
just
definitely
stop talking.
talk hockey at some point down the road. In the meantime, enjoy your week number 2 in the NFL. Matt Bove, WKBW TV Channel 7, Sal Capaccio, WGR Sports Radio 550. Thank you to Mike Robier, our producer. Thank you for listening and watching on Sal Sports on YouTube.